Hey everyone, Daniel here. You are watching Lepta TV. Haggai is the subject of this video. Haggai is considered one of the minor prophets in the Old Testament. There are actually 12 so-called minor prophets, so Haggai can get mixed up with many of the others. But my hope in this video is to explain the Book of Haggai, what it teaches us about Haggai himself, and the central lesson we can all draw from his recorded messages. It speaks to all of us, this book does, no matter where we are on our journey. So I'm glad that you right now are watching this, and I hope this is a blessing to you and an encouragement to your heart. Without further ado, let's jump in. Haggai prophesied in 520 BC, 16 years after the Jews returned to Jerusalem from captivity in Babylon. We don't know any personal details about Haggai. Many times with these prophets, we're told who their father was, maybe where the prophet was specifically from. We don't get any of that with Haggai. There's a big chance Haggai had been taken to Babylon during the captivity, but that's not confirmed in the text. So we know the year, 520 BC, and the fact that the Jews had been back for 16 years and that Haggai was a prophet of the Lord. But something's wrong, okay? The temple had not been rebuilt yet. 16 years and still no temple. We see that in verse 2 of the first chapter. Thus speaks the Lord of hosts, saying, this people says, the time has not come, the time that the Lord's house should be built. They've been putting it off. Now, they were rebuilding other things. Okay, in Haggai chapter 1, verse 3, the Lord asks, is it time for you yourselves to dwell in your paneled houses and this temple to lie in ruins? They took care of their homes, their personal stuff, and that's fine. But it says they were dwelling in the homes that they rebuilt and the temple was still in ruins. They aren't rebuilding it. Okay, that's the heart of the problem Haggai is addressing. They aren't doing what God has called them to do. What makes matters worse, the temple was central to their way of life. It was their sacred place with God. The priestly duties were carried out there. It was the place where their rituals were held, and they were putting it off. Now, they had really great excuses, okay? It wasn't that they were just sitting around being lazy, doing nothing. We know from the first 2 verses of Ezra chapter 4 that there were enemies in the area who opposed their efforts to rebuild the temple. And unfortunately, those efforts were working. But even knowing those challenges, knowing the opposition, the Lord is still saying in verse 7, consider your ways. This idea of realize what you're neglecting. Think about how you've been ignoring what I've told you to do. I know it's hard. I know there's been opposition. It's not easy, but it needs to be done. And guess what? They listened to the Lord. They did it. Haggai 1:12 tells us they obeyed the voice of the Lord their God and the words of Haggai the prophet, as the Lord their God had sent him, and the people feared the presence of the Lord. They had this deep reverence for the Lord, his presence, and his mandate for them. They finally did it after 16 years of putting it off. In chapter 2, the Lord promises that the glory of this second temple would be greater than the first, and promised to be with them. He speaks to them about uncleanness, promises future blessings, and then the book ends with a prophecy about Zerubbabel, who was the governor of Judah. confirming that he had chosen Zerubbabel to lead the people. That's the book of Haggai. It's just 2 chapters long. Now, when I was in Bible college, I heard Haggai described as a book about priorities. It's all about priorities. And yes, it does speak to us about priorities, but I think the theme is even more specific than that. Haggai is a book about choosing to do what God has called us to do, to take God up on his divine tasks for us, to say yes. After being captives in Babylon, think of all the turmoil they went through. They were putting their lives back together, and there were enemies in the area. And so they were like rebuilding their homes, taking care of their families, setting up their lives again, their careers. Okay, that's all great. That's all great. The Bible's clear. We need to take care of our family. We need to provide for our household. But that's not our only calling. In Luke 2:49, Jesus asked, "Did you not know I must be about my Father's business?" In other words, I have heavenly tasks that my Father has blessed me with. We have earthly business, and that's important. That's provision and blessing, and that's a calling unto itself. But these people were ignoring their Father's business completely. And that's a trap that's easy to fall into. Something you may not realize about me, I'm a volunteer pastor. I don't get paid a single penny from Leptachurch Incorporated. Like most of you, I have a career. That means if I don't do my Father's business, my family still eats, my household can be taken care of. And that's the unique challenge. There's an interesting challenge there. Your Father's business can stir up trouble for you, drama. It can be challenging, just as completing the second temple was a challenge for the people in Haggai's day. And remember, there was all that opposition to the people rebuilding the temple. So the temptation is it's easy to ignore your Father's business. It's easy to do that, especially if there's no financial motivation or anything else, but you miss out if you don't do that. If you have a career outside of the church and ministry, listen, you're in good company. For example, the New Testament, we see Priscilla and Aquila made tents. That was their career. The Apostle Paul made tents. They did their Father's business alongside their careers. In Christian circles, that's commonly called tent-making missions, but I don't really like that term. It should just be called life. You love the people around you, displaying the character of Christ. And when God invites you to do something specific, some of his business in addition to your own, it's a wonderful gift, and you can take him up on it and say yes. You've got your business, so to speak, and you're also about your Father's business because you're his child. True, there may be no earthly incentive beyond the joy of serving our Lord and the fulfillment in our hearts from doing his will, his plan. But that joy, that fulfillment is better than money. And it might be tempting to not do that because it seems like our lives are not on the line. Listen, it's important to do because life is empty without that joy, the joy of living out the amazing adventure he has set out for you, saying yes when he invites you to divine tasks along your path, divine tasks along my path, even if it's hard, difficult, challenges, opposition. But that's Haggai. The people neglected their Father's business. They needed to be reminded, listen, there's more to life. It can be easy to put off or to ignore our Father's business, especially if it isn't literally your career. But Haggai is an invitation to all of us. There's more to life than just our business. Let's make sure, in addition to that, our business, we need to also be about our Father's business, as Jesus said. I say this every video, but you know that subscribe button is there. If these videos are a blessing to you and you want to be a part of our online ministry, consider clicking that. Wow, talking about Haggai. If you've got questions, comments, concerns, you can comment below or email us at contact@leptachurch.com. Thank you so much for watching and learning about Haggai with us. May God abundantly bless you and your family and your community wherever you are. Be about your Father's business. That's the heart of the book of Haggai. I appreciate you watching, and I will see you next video.